Welcome to TACOS Tuesday. I'm Hamish Conway and here with Sebastian Hargraves. Welcome, Sebastian.
Thanks, Hamish.
Every Tuesday, we go through Amazon ads tactics and strategies that are working for sellers. Now, whether you be on third party or a vendor or whatever the country. Now, a couple of weeks ago, or even 3 weeks ago, we went through some five fundamentals. And as I was going through that, it's like, wow, we actually really need more time on that. So today, the topic is Amazon ads, fundamentals breakdown, keyword harvesting is the topic. What is it and why do we do it? Okay, so that's what we're going to dive into the details here. So tell us, Sebastian, Seb, keyword harvesting, what is it?
Yeah, cool. So keyword harvesting is the concept or the idea of taking terms that have converted for you on advertising in what we call research campaigns and moving them from those research campaigns into campaigns where you have more control, things like exact match campaigns and things like that. And so that's the general concept.
Okay, and so why do we need to do it? Why does it even matter?
Yeah. So the main reason that we do it is when we set up research campaigns, and to be specific, when we're talking about research, there's a few different campaigns that we set up for research. One of them is Amazon's auto campaigns. Auto campaigns can target competitor ASINs. They can target a whole bunch of different keywords, and that's one form of research. There's also what we call phrase and broad match campaigns. They also are research campaigns, and so the reason that we do it is in those campaigns we have a limit. Normally, we have a lot of targets, and we're getting a lot of different search terms, and we have one bid that might be getting a lot of different search terms. And now each search term is kind of like its own market. And so each one of them needs its own tailored bid to be able to optimize to your objectives. So the reason that we move them from those research campaigns into the exact match campaigns, what we call exact match campaigns, is because we can control those bids much more precisely, and we can align our objectives. Whether it's profitability objectives or sales growth objectives, whatever it is, with those search terms. So each bid can be much more aligned with the search term. So that's why we do it.
Okay. Because when you are researching, by its very nature, you are going to be inefficient in that you will pick up a lot of irrelevant search terms, right? But you are kind of going fishing to see, well, what else out there is there that could surprise us that we don't already know.
Yeah.
Correct?
Yep, absolutely. Yeah. So there's going to be certain search terms you probably know straight off the top of your bat when you're thinking about your product. You're like, well, this is what I would search to find my product, but not everyone thinks the same, right? So there's a lot of different ways to find products, and a lot of the times it's not as straightforward as you think. There might be search terms that get a lot more volume than you think, and by doing that research process, you find those search terms. And it's not just about volume; it's also about relevancy. When you're harvesting, you're basically figuring out what search terms customers, because this is a customer ordering a product, are relevant for, right? So if you get an order, there's some kind of relevancy there, right? Like every now and then you do get some random search terms with some random orders, but in general, if you've got an order, there is some level of relevancy. Now, whether you're paying too much or too little is hard for you to gauge in a campaign that's a research campaign. And so the reason that we move them to exact is to control the cost around, should I pay more for this or should I pay less? In a research campaign, it's going to be much harder for you to do that, you're not going to be able to do that. And so that's why we move them to these exact match type campaigns.
Okay. And then in the exact match, because we've harvested them and we've put them into the exact match, then we can look to scale that up as and see what the results look like, and can we continue to grow and start to win on that particular search term, and ideally then start to get more organic ranking or better organic ranking on that search term as well, so we can start to not manipulate that but control that to some degree.
Yep,
is that right?
That's right. Yeah, exactly.
Okay, so that's good. So we're kind of understanding now what they are and why we do it, but how do we set these up?
Yeah, so depending on where you are at with your product, the best way to set them up is through an auto campaign, or like I said, setting up phrase or broad match campaigns. That will start the research process. Now you can do this to established products. You can also do this to product launches, but that'll be the starting process of basically gathering the data. Now your budget will depend how much research you can do. So if you've got a lot of budget, you can obviously collect data more quickly. You can be more aggressive. If you've got a low budget, you'll have to start small and work your way up with the research. So you might only start off with an auto campaign, for example, to begin with. And start harvesting from there. Once you start to see some better sales numbers, you can then start to add in your phrase and your broad type campaigns.
Okay. So just a question in around by country. This can change by country, right? And I mean, you would go researching if you're in a new country because you just might not know some of the localization of the language would be one reason there. But what about, I mean, a lot of our audience is from Australia versus the US. So do you look at it different by country, or are there advantages either way?
Yeah, that's part of the reason that we use the research process. We just let the data tell us like where the search terms are and what we're relevant for. An example to your point would be like nappies versus diapers. In the US, you're going to call them diapers, but in the UK and here in Australia, you're going to call them nappies. And so that's an example of like they use them differently over there. The other piece to factor in is Amazon has like an auto search function, like where they fill in the search term automatically for you. So a lot like Google will try and guess what you're trying to search for. Amazon will do the same, and so and those are different by different countries as well. So and normally those autofill search terms have a lot of volume behind them because you start typing in what you want and then Amazon just guesses the rest for you and you go, yep, that's what I wanted, and you hit enter.
Right.
So yeah.
Okay, so actually, just as a little side part there, when you are typing into the search bar, and so if you did put in diapers, and then it came up with, then you see the different longer tail searches like diaper change kit or diaper bag or what have you. Is that like a source that you look at to go, right, this is probably a search term that we should start to test more? Do you ever look at it like that?
Yeah, so that's kind of in the keyword research group rather than the harvesting, because those terms probably are relevant and whatnot, but they, at the end of the day, we're looking for that order. We want to know that we have an order from that search term, and that's when we're deciding to harvest it. Normally, you have a criteria around your harvesting, and it is, for example, can be orders. Well, generally, orders is your harvesting criteria.
Yeah. So that's really the difference, right? Yes, they're search terms, but we're looking at harvesting what's relevant to our products there. Okay. So what kind of results can people expect by doing this?
Yep. So the biggest impact that you're going to have around the results piece is the fact that you're going to have more control over your bids. So as you mentioned kind of earlier, when you've got research, you're going to have a lot of irrelevant stuff coming in, because you're by nature doing research to find out what's working and what's not working. The other part to that is obviously, like I said, your bid isn't aligned, or what you're paying for those placements isn't aligned with what your objective is when it's in the research campaign. So by harvesting them out, you might have an objective where you're like, look, I want an ACOS or a ROAS of XYZ. And by harvesting them out, you can get much closer to that objective because you can control the bid more granularly. So basically, you get better results is one of it, is one part of it. And then the other part of it is that you reduce the amount of waste that you have on it as well. And then there's probably a third piece there, which is your research campaigns are designed to find new search terms. So as you harvest them out, what we do is what we call negative matching, where we basically say, okay, we've harvested that out. We don't want to show in the research campaign anymore for that term. And it makes and forces that research campaign to find new search terms, not the one that's already found. We've taken that one out and said, we don't need to find that one anymore. We want you to go find more And so by continuing to harvest like that, you find you're basically forcing the research campaigns to work really, really hard to try and find new terms.
Right, constantly iterating, really, as you say, like it's working, take that out. We don't want it to be searching for that. I like it. That's good. So I guess linked to this, to that, there is when do you harvest search terms, or how does that kind of look in the journey?
Yeah, so the when part comes down to where your product is in its in its product cycle. If it's a product launch, you're going to be more liberal with your harvesting criteria. So you're going to be like, look, anything that gets an order we think is relevant, and we're trying to grow and expand, and so you're going to be much more liberal in that instance. And when we say when, we're specifically talking about like when do we harvest a term from a research one, and so when you're at launch stage, it will be probably when you get an order. All right. Now, but sometimes you can get one click and one order. That's very low data. And sometimes that can be really random terms. And so that's not that helpful. So fine for a product launch, but if your product's in the stage of trying to improve its profitability, then what you might do is you would make the harvesting criteria more strict. And so basically you might say, okay, look, it needs to have 2 or 3 orders before we decide to harvest it, because we don't want to be harvesting things with low data necessarily. One click, one order, maybe it's not what we, maybe it's not as relevant as what we think, but something that has 3 orders will be very, very relevant to your product. And in general will be, a better performing keyword for you.
Great. Anything else to add there that you haven't already covered on keyword harvesting?
I think the last thing I'd say is keyword harvesting is really dependent on setting up your structure right from the beginning. If you have a really messy campaign structure and things like that, it makes it really hard to do the harvesting. You've got to know where they're coming from, where they're going to, how many products are inside them. And so getting really clear on how you want to set up your structure around your campaigns will make this, the actual operation of doing harvesting, much, much easier.
Yeah. Very good. Very good. And look, if you would like to have Sebastian have a look at your campaign structure and see how you could do keyword harvesting better, if you go to gosellglobal.com, that's the homepage, then look under services and then management for ads, and you'll see a page there that shows how you can do that in terms of booking a call. It's got some examples of what an audit looks like and Seb talking through that. So that would be the next best thing to do. And otherwise, I hope you enjoyed that. So keyword harvesting, a critical part, a fundamental part of being successful with your Amazon ads. So thanks very much, Seb. Much appreciated. And
Thanks,
if you liked it, hit like, subscribe, and all of those good things. And we'll see you next Tuesday for TACOS Tuesday. All the best. Thank you.